If everyone will take their seats, we're going to get started with our meeting. Thank you. Good to see you. Yes, it's time. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, July the 9th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone in our City Council audience as well as our listening audience at WCBU. Welcome also our audience watching via cable channel 22. Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali.
Present.
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Sear.
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Young.
Present.
Councilmember Graham. Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Euler. Councilmember Riggenbach. Councilmember Valpula.
Present.
And Councilmember Vespa.
Here.
We have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Everyone, please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk.
We are at proclamations.
We have one proclamation tonight. It's recognizing Great Neighbor Appreciation Week. And at the podium, we have Joe Doolin, who's our Director of Community Development. We have Kaylee Dre, who is our Community Development Engagement Manager. And we have Lamya Duehi, our Associate Management Analyst. I hope I did some justice to that name. Lamya, thank you. Whereas the City of Peoria Community Development Department aims to create a safer, cleaner, and more connected Peoria. And whereas neighbors play an integral part in maintaining and promoting a high quality of life in the City of Peoria. And whereas the City of Peoria Community Development Department is hosting the 9th annual Great Neighbor Appreciation Week with a week-long celebration to encourage our community members to reach out to their neighbors, create new friends, and express gratitude to those who make our neighborhoods and the city a great place to live. And whereas Great Neighbor Appreciation Week provides Peoria residents with opportunities to show their appreciation for their neighbors and be reminded of what it means to be a great neighbor. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, and on behalf of the Peoria City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of July 15th through July 21st, 2024, to be Great Neighbor Appreciation Week in Peoria. Director?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So as the Mayor said, this is the 9th annual Great Neighbor Appreciation Week. The week really is one of our favorite weeks as a city employee in the Community Development Department. Often our staff has to focus on those who sometimes need a little gentle reminder of what codes to follow, what rules to follow, what ordinances to follow. And sometimes we don't have enough time to focus on the very, very large majority of Peorians who love their neighborhood, follow the rules, work together to improve our community. And so this week is really about recognizing those that do that, recognizing those that respect their neighbors, respect the city, respect the community, and just celebrate them for all the things they do on a daily basis. So with that said, I'm going to hand the mic over to Kaylee, who's just going to go over what we have planned for the week.
Great.
Thank you, Joe. So we have a lot of fun things planned for this week. We'll start on this Saturday, the 13th. You can find us at the Riverfront Market from 8 a.m. to noon. We'll have a table. We'll be talking about our programs, and we'll be encouraging our community members to complete the HUD Consolidated Plan Survey as well. Then Monday, we kick off the week with Nonprofit Appreciation Day. This is an opportunity for our staff to go around and thank all the nonprofits who work so closely with us and make our community great. Then on Tuesday, we have what we call Code Encouragement Day. This is a day where our staff go out and rather than focus on those properties, as Joe said, need a little bit of a nudge to get to the right direction. We'll be going out and recognizing folks who are going above and beyond to maintain their properties and take pride in their communities. Then on Wednesday, we have our Local and Small Business Appreciation Day. This is when our staff go around and just say thank you to all of the small and local businesses who are taking the time to invest in our community. Then on Thursday, you can actually find us at the Peoria Park District Parks on Tap. We will have a table there, and again, we'll be promoting our programs, both our assistance programs, and we'll be encouraging community members to complete that HUD Consolidated Plan Survey. We really want their input on that. On Friday, we're going to do another Code Encouragement Day, and on Saturday, we invite everyone to join us for a city-wide cleanup. We'll have locations in the South Side, the North Valley, the East Bluff, the Center Bluff, and the West Bluff. We'll have staff available with supplies to clean up, bags, gloves, and we'll be there from 9 to 11. Those locations will be posted on our website, in a press release, and on social media. Thank you.
Sounds exciting, Kaylee.
I just want to thank Kaylee and Lamia for all their work. It's a very busy week, and the entire Community Development Department staff is kind of all on boards, but they do a lot of the work. So I wanted to make sure the last word was recognizing and appreciating them. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk,
We are at the approval of minutes.
Councilmember Valpula.
I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held on June 25th, 2024 as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have one town item. 24-205 is a request from the town officials to approve the June 2024 actual expenditures and to approve the July 2024 anticipated expenditures for the town of the city of Peoria.
Trustee Graham?
Move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 24-206 is a communication with a request to approve the low bid of Knapp Concrete Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $283,768.29 and award a contract for the Lamont Avenue Special Service Area Mill and Overlay with an additional authorization of $28,376.71 for contingencies, for a total contract award of $312,145. 24-207 is a communication with a request to approve a 4-year lease agreement with City Blue Technologies to provide Epson copiers for the city of Peoria in an amount not to exceed $40,000 per year. 24-208 is a communication with a request to approve an agreement with Tazewell and Peoria Railroad, Inc. to reimburse the railroad $29,150 for review of the proposed improvements to the crossing on Grant Street for the Rock Island Greenway project. 24-209 is a communication with request concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a present Class I-1 Industrial Business Park District to a Class C2 Large-Scale Commercial District for the property located at 2700 West Altorford Drive, Peoria, Illinois. 24-198 is a communication with request to adopt an ordinance amending Appendix A of the Unified Development Code relating to ground-mounted solar energy devices. 24-199 is a communication with request to adopt an ordinance amending Appendix A of the Unified Development Code relating to parking. And 24-210 is a communication to approve the site application for a Class H temporary outdoor liquor license for an event to be held by Peoria Firefighters Local 50 at 619 Southwest Water Street in front of Kelleher's Irish Pub on August 9th, 2024. And that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any items to remove from consent? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Seer. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have a presentation tonight. It's 24-211, a communication from the city manager and assistant city manager to receive and file a presentation regarding the strategic plan update.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn the floor over to our Assistant City Manager, Kimberly Richardson, to just give you a brief overview of the document that you have at your desk.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Presenting to you tonight the complete final strategic plan. Back in October, you did approve the plan, so this is the finalized document. I want to just inform you that within the plan, what you will see is somewhat different is that we had, over the last several months as staff, with the support of our city staff and our leadership staff, really define our outcome measures for the year. So what you're seeing here are our outcome measures that will be focused on for 2024, 2025. We will be coming back to you all and during our budget process with a more detailed outline and plan and how we integrate this into the budget priorities as we move forward. Are there any questions?
I certainly want to thank you for your leadership role in pulling this all together, Manager Richardson. It's been it's taken a long time. There's been a lot of stakeholders, from residents to businesses, employers, not-for-profits, just community groups in general, but staff being really the center of getting the work done, being a big part of this process. So I appreciate the work. It's a council-approved plan. It's a community-approved plan. So now it's time to work it. From my understanding, we said from the beginning that we didn't want a plan that was stagnant and not flexible, one that's not changeable. So we want it to be a living document. My understanding is that it will be on the web. There will be a dashboard. Can you speak to that?
Sure.
Moving forward, and how it will be community facing?
I will speak to all of those plus a couple other added information for this council to also be aware of. So this plan as written is going to be, as the mayor said, it's going to be a visual progress document tool that we'll be using on our website that will allow us to show the progress of the goal, looking at the outcome measures and other measures, data points that we've identified in the document. Working with the finance department, we look to have that document up and running beginning Q1 of 2025. Once the budget is adopted, that's going to correlate with the budget as well. Secondly, this document in front of you is going to be an annual document. So as we continue to refine our outcome measures, and as you will see, we also have data that we're tracking. We'll be coming back with a progress as part of the budget process, but also separate from the budget process, just as a just as an update to the council and making sure that we're doing as aligned in the plan. One thing I will add is that we have been, over the last 6 months, meeting on a regular basis. So the departments are developing their own department plans around the strategic plan that we will be bringing to council over the next few months. But what is interesting about that is that it's really looking at our internal processes and how can we better look at our process from a collaborative standpoint, so not looking just from the department, but also looking citywide. So we are going to be bringing different strategies that we will share with the council and the community about how we're ensuring that as we continue to implement this plan, we're doing it in a way that will allow for us to align our internal practices with the plan as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much for your work on this, Assistant City Manager Richardson. I know you made it look like it was light, but I know it was a heavy lift, and I know you had a lot of people assisting you with this. Just a clarifying question, is this the plan entirely, or is this more of like an executive summary in our hand?
No, this is the plan as adopted. The only thing that you're not seeing is all the outcome measures as we continue to refine those outcome measures, because what we learned is that some of the outcomes were not really outcomes, they were more activities and inputs. So we want to make sure they were smart, measurable, actionable goals that we are going to be measuring, and so that's what you're seeing reflected in front of you now.
No, awesome, and I appreciate this. It's concise, it's digestible, and I think that's going to be very important, especially as we want to continue to have that resident buy-in. We want anyone to come across this document, whether it's the tangible booklet in my hand or what's going to be on the website via a PDF. So great job with this. I thought Mayor Lee did a great job at the State of the City going through each of the 6 pillars that are our strategies, and really already articulating some activities that are happening as we look to execute our strategic plan. So job well done. And I think that this is right on time, especially as we go into budget discussions this fall and we can correlate our budget efforts around our strategic priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sear?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to receive and file.
Second by Councilmember Velpula. Questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Manager Richardson. Madam Clerk?
We are at regular business. 24-212 is a communication from the City Manager and Assistant City Manager with a request to approve a grant of American Rescue Plan funds to the Peoria Women's Club in the amount of $150,000 for exterior handicapped accessible access on the Madison Street entrance.
Councilmember Graham?
Yes, and I certainly...
I'm sorry, I should not have done that yet. Let me just go to the manager first. Sorry about that. I'll come right back to you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you. The next 2 items that you have are requests to utilize from city staff with requests to utilize American Rescue Plan funds to assist 2 historic structures with ADA compatibility. The first item is, and the item that's up right now, is the Peoria Women's Club. They have been undergoing a renovation of the facility, a $4 million renovation. To date, they've raised over half of the funds for that renovation. The third project that they're working on, and the project that's here, is to try and establish ADA accessible entrances on the Madison Street side of the property. For those of you who aren't aware of where the Women's Club is, it's at the corner of Madison and Fayette. So it's somewhat landlocked. There is space in the public right-of-way for that. They would obviously have to have a public use agreement with the city and a maintenance agreement for that going forward. But the request here was that we would utilize $150,000 of the American Rescue Plan funds that we had set aside for economic development purposes. We have been setting aside about $1.4 million a year of those funds. We have funds that have not been allocated. This allows us, out of those economic development funds, to utilize those funds in that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I know it's located in District 2, and that's why I turned to you, Councilman Gray.
Well, Mayor, I was going to enjoy just a few moments of reversing the roles. I become the city manager, and he can come over here and be second district. But you and I have been there for a number of events, and so has Councilmember Bernice Gordon-Young and others. And it's just fantastic what's been done to revitalize this historic building. And I think this is a good use of the funds. So I would move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-213 is a communication from the city manager and assistant city manager with a request to provide a grant of American Rescue Plan funds to the Madison Preservation Association in the amount of $150,000 for shared handicapped accessible access with Madison Main Street Facilitation Group for the Madison Theater.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, this is the second historic structure, the Madison Theater, which we all know the kind of the history of it, but it was closed in 2003, and back in 2022, there were two entities that purchased it. There was the Madison Main Street Facilitation Company, which purchased the Main Street storefronts of the Madison Theater block, and then there was the Madison Theater Preservation Association, which received as a charitable donation the theater. The Preservation Association is in the process of working on their plans for the renovation, trying to assemble what they need to do that, and it's going to be a large and complex renovation project. The Madison Theater, the Madison Main Facilitation Company, is further along in their plans to redevelop the Main Street side of the properties, where they would be looking at putting in a couple of restaurants or restaurant and bars, coupled with commercial space on the second floor. The Madison Theater needs to have shared ADA entrances, which would come in off of the Madison Street side of the facility, as well as shared bathrooms on that second floor if it's to go forward. So that's the reason why they're making this request, is to go into that. I anticipate that in sometime this year we should be seeing a redevelopment agreement coming back from the Madison Main Street Facilitation Group for the Madison Theater block side, or the Main Street side of this structure.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I'm going to turn to you again, Councilmember Graham.
Yes, I would gladly move to approve as outlined by the manager.
Seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-214 is a communication from the city manager and corporation council with a request to approve a 5-year renewal lease agreement with the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission at 456 Fulton Street, Peoria, Illinois, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Corporation Counsel Hayes.
So we presently lease this space to Tri-County, and they're happy with the space. We're working on some other opportunities in the same footprint that we may be bringing forward, but this is an extension of the lease for an additional 5 years. They've been an excellent tenant. They've cooperated with us on mutual use to maximize the use of our training facility, and we look forward to another 5 years of a partnership with that organization.
Absolutely. Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Gordon-Young. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-215 is a communication from the city manager and finance director comptroller with a request to receive and file the month ended May 31st, 2024 unaudited financial report.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our finance director, Kyle Craddy, is here, and I'll turn the floor over to him to let him walk through the monthly financials for you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. The report has not changed dramatically since you saw the April report about 2 weeks ago. So at the end of the month of May, revenues are lagging behind expectations by 8.3%. If you look into the details of why that is, it's heavily influenced by just how we are looking at receipt of federal funds. So we had a larger budget for federal funds, we just haven't received those as of yet. They will be received, they're just not being shown in the report. And that makes up the primary difference of why those numbers are lower. On the expense side, we are up about 8.6% compared to budget. But I think in reality, we're still looking at both on a revenue side as well as an expense side. I anticipate us being on budget for the year. And with that, I'm open to any questions the council has.
Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for taking my call this morning. Just from our conversation this morning, can you tell us again, just some teaching here, I believe. So our budget, our expenditures are higher than our revenue in our budget. Where does the money comes from to make sure we have a balanced budget?
In essence, we use our reserves on hand or our fund balance.
Which comes from the $52 million we have, basically. Correct. Okay, thank you. Tell us also about you know how I don't like to see those negative on our balance sheet, the refuse account and the IMRF. Can you tell us, answer both questions, I guess, how it's funded and when you believe we'll get down to a zero balance?
Yeah, so on the refuse fund side of it, the numbers are skewed a little bit through this point in the year because our primary revenue sources are when we get tax receipts and really kind of that June and September timeframe. So that's why you see that large I think a little over $3 million increase to the deficit. That will correct in June. We do anticipate looking at the work that's being done with GFL, and I know it's an item on here. We still anticipate being at a zero fund balance sometime around 2027 to 2028 in the refuge fund based off of how that contract is structured. On the IMRF fund, the reason that shows a negative fund balance is there was the early retirement incentive that the city offered back in 2020 into 2021. Instead of going with IMRF to fund that, which they charge 7.25%, we did an internal loan from the OPEB fund, which is at a rate of 3%. And so that's showing the negative balance. So that's a 10-year note that will get paid down over the next 8 years.
And last question, thank you for adding back the police fire pension line. The revenue line, $7.5 million. Excuse me. I'm assuming that number comes from personal property replacement tax, correct?
It's primarily personal property replacement tax. We also transfer 1/12 every month of the contribution the city's making from the general fund to the police and fire pension funds.
Thank you, Mr. Craddy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Craddy, can you please provide any context looking at the historic cash flow? I noticed that currently, per the chart, we're at a little over $185 million, but last year we were above, at this time, about $200 million. Can you speak to the difference there, please?
Yeah, so, obviously we've had American Rescue Plan funds that we have on our balance sheet that we have been spending down over the last couple of years. So that's really the primary driver why you're seeing that dip. We also have some large numbers looking at our capital improvements that we're doing both this year and next year. So because of those larger dollars, we've been spending those fund balances in those funds.
Thank you for that clarification, because when I look at the previous years, we were substantially lower as far as our historic cash flow at this time, and obviously those were the years when we didn't have the ARPA funds, so that makes sense. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? Can we get a motion to receive and file? Moved by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Seer. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Director Craddy. Madam Clerk?
We're at unfinished business. 24-202 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Highly Flavored Peoria, LLC, doing business as Highly Flavored at 456 Fulton, Suite 186, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve contingent upon the issuance of an agreed-upon plan of operation. And there is a motion on the floor to deny the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Highly Flavored Peoria LLC, doing business as Highly Flavored at 456 Fulton Street, Suite 186. And there is on your desk a handout in yellow from the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. This yellow handout, is that it? No?
Yes.
The yellow handout, okay. All right. As the Madam Clerk indicated, there is a motion on the floor. I'm going to turn first to Corporation Counsel. There were, I think, a few requests for updated information. I don't know whether there's any updates that you have since the meeting 2 weeks ago, but if there's any additional information for the council to consider, I'd ask that that be provided or communicated, I would say.
Well, to briefly summarize, I did distribute a complete set of the redacted police reports from the entire period of time that Highly Flavored was an occupant at Landmark. I shared with the council my overview of those, which is that there were some reports that reflected some chaos that we see in many areas where people congregate. Only 3 of those incident reports mentioned Highly Flavored or Mr. Sargent. Those 3 reports didn't indicate any conduct on behalf of the organization or business operations that led to or precipitated those issues. I also shared that there was a review of the calls for service from the 8 months that Highly Flavored was an occupant there. There were 119 calls for service. Some of those resulted in those police reports, but many of our calls for service don't. And so that's not at all unusual. Oddly enough, in the 8-month period, identical to that time span from a year before Highly Flavored was there, there was 140 some odd calls for service. So there wasn't an increase in calls for service related to or during the period of time that Highly Flavored was present compared to the immediate year before. Both of those years were higher than years prior to that partly because of the COVID shutdowns and things like that. I could not find any of our formal reports that connected any of the chaotic events that our police responded to at that site that was related to the conduct or business operations of Highly Flavored. The other update is that I mentioned last week that there was an issue related to the taxes for Highly Flavored for February, March, and April of earlier this year. They have entered into a payment plan with our finance department, which is not unusual, and Director Craddy had shared an email with the council about that's a typical business practice in our accounts receivable. And so I think that may be attributed to the cessation of business and a lack of cash flow. That said, the issues of tonight really relate to whether the site is appropriate and not so much the operator. But I would point out that even our Liquor Commission pointed out that a restricted set of hours would be appropriate, and I've indicated that we will respect the restrictions that are in the present lease, which is to 8 p.m. unless they show proof of that, and we'd recommend to you a licensure consistent with that lease up until 11 p.m. depending on what they're able to negotiate with their landlord.
Okay.
So I think that reflects what staff's position is today on the matter, and be happy to answer any additional questions if there are any.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counsel. Let's continue that discussion. Councilmember Greb?
Madam Chair, I would move to defer action on my denial motion until the first regularly scheduled meeting of the Peoria City Council in August, so that I can more fully consult with constituents that have asked me to consult in person with them.
Okay. Is there a motion to second that motion, seconded by Councilmember Sear, to defer the action? Councilmember Gordon Young.
Well, I was going to speak to why I deferred it to begin with. And thank you, Corporation Counsel Hayes, for the information, because that was important that we make sure we have accurate information and then keeping in mind what our purpose is. And I think that you clarified it really well in that it's about the site approval, not about the owner. But even with that, I think that the strategic plan that's been placed before us really could not have better timing, because it really is about...
You're going to speak to the deferral.
Okay, I won't do that then. Okay, well, speaking to the deferral, I would suggest that we move to amend versus defer, because the constituents are not making a decision on the approval. They were talking to you talking to Councilman Greb about the liquor license approval. Am I incorrect in that?
Are you addressing that to me?
Yes, sir.
I'm the district councilman, and they have requested another meeting with me so that they can review this whole issue. And we defer things all the time here, and I'm asking for us to have a deferral on this, on my denial, until the first regularly scheduled meeting in August.
Right. You complained that we deferred last time, so that's why I just wanted to get clarification on why you were deferring and what they wanted to talk to you about.
Well, we'll find out when we meet with them.
So
I don't script what my constituents say.
But I'm just saying...
They tell me.
Well, I'm just asking for clarification. So are you saying that they want to talk more about the site as far as site approval, or they want to talk more about the actual business owners?
I'll know when I get there, when we have the meeting.
Okay, so they gave me no indication.
If I had the value of the input, we wouldn't have to have a deferral.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, our motion, our vote is going to be on the motion to defer until the first meeting in August. That date would be...
Madam Mayor, that would be August 13th.
Okay. Well, before we go to that vote, Councilman Graham, did you want to say something?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I just want to make the deferral motion so I can consult further with my constituents.
Okay.
And then bring it back that first regularly scheduled meeting in August.
Okay, all right. I would just like to hear from the applicant on the impact of moving that decision until August the 13th. Mr. Sargent?
Just to speak on that, that's just hindering me to get open and get the process going. I feel like I've been spending the past 2 months defending myself from, defamation of character and slander, and here we are at the site approval to speak about the site itself. The site has been approved since 2004. It's had a liquor license for over 19 years upon them relocating the Creve Coeur Country Club I'm speaking of. So to have that information and that understanding that this site, has had a liquor license for over 19 years, and here I am to get a site approval again, but go through so many hoops and setbacks upon negative information that's being spread about me is really discouraging.
Does it impact the lease?
Absolutely. It's I was hoping to open mid-July, but with these setbacks, I'm pushing that date back further and further. So to push it back another month, it's just going to set me back that much more. And, the bills over there are due. The rent needs to be paid, so.
So I guess my question is whether the landlord will work with you with regard to such an extension.
That I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sargent.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to defer until August the 13th meeting, and please cast your ballots. Motion passes with 1 nay, Gordon Young. Madam Clerk?
24-143 is a communication from the City Manager, Corporation Counsel, and Director of Public Works with a request for the following. A, approve an amendment to the Landfill 2 agreement with Waste Management, Inc., pending review and approval by the State's Attorney's Office. And B, adopt an ordinance amending the City of Peoria 2024-2025 biennial budget relating to the Solid Waste Fund for additional work from both for multiple added services in the amount of $100,000. And item B requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes, and we need separate votes, please.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are continuing to have conversations with GFL. We had a very productive conversation a couple weeks back where we're looking at and discussing whether or not we could potentially look at a transfer station being sited and then transferring our waste to the Indian Creek landfill that they operate in Tazewell County for 15 years, and then plan to operate our landfill after that 15-year period of time. But at the same time, GFL is proceeding with looking at getting the permits to construct our landfill. We continue to have those dialogue with them. We're trying to get to a point where we can come back to you with a recommendation. We've had a discussion at our last landfill committee meeting. This was discussed in public and open session, so I have no problem talking about it here with everyone right now. But in the spirit of those collegial and I think very professional negotiations, we just ask for another 1-month deferral on this item to August 13th, if we could.
Thank you. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Move to defer this item A 30 days.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Discussion, Councilmember Graham?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry about that. It did. Okay. Any discussion regarding the deferral? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at new business.
Is there any new business? Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't finish with that item. Councilmember Euler?
Move to defer item B 30 days.
Councilmember Allen seconded. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Is there any new business? Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am not sure who to address this to. Corporation Counsel, your number came up. Recently, we received a report from the what is the name? The Justice Committee.
For the Supreme Court decision?
No.
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 Okay.
The racial equity.
Oh.
Okay.
RJE Commission?
Yeah, we received that on the same night that we were asked to receive and file. We received, which was an excellent report, but nobody had seen it. We received the strategic plan final tonight. Nobody had seen it. Is that proper for receive and file? And I'm willing to understand that it is. we're receiving something we really haven't seen or looked at. Is that?
If I could take that, Councilman, in the instance of the RJE Commission, they were presenting that plan and distributing it to the council. That should have gone out sooner. That I put that on our office in terms of not doing that. But you did receive an electronic copy of that. It was emailed to you prior to the meeting, several weeks prior to the meeting. This item, the strategic plan this evening, and again, they are receiving files. So this is you're taking it. There is no action that's being taken by the City Council. This item, the strategic plan, literally the final version of this printed document is sitting in Addison, Illinois right now because it didn't make it because of the holiday weekend and other issues that have gone on with weather. So this was printed up by the printers that we were working at here locally to get that to you so that we could get it to you today. So that's the reason why that was not included earlier in the packet.
So it would be, I think it tends to be normal that in our packets or on our tablets, we do get these things ahead of time to receive
Typically.
and file. Okay. So I just don't want to make that a habit. I mean, I, of course, voted to receive and file, but I didn't know what I was receiving and filing. Sure. Secondly, not to be too contradictory, but I got a copy of the racial justice report from the Journal-Star a week or two before the meeting. I don't believe I received an electronic copy, and there wasn't one in here either before that night.
You should have, and I'll go back and confirm, but I thought we sent that out to everyone ahead of time.
You know what? You don't have to. I guess I would just make a request that if we have something to receive and file, that we make sure we have that ahead of time so we can review it ahead of time.
Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other new business? Madam Clerk?
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council.
I have 3 cards. The first is DeRay Katie.
Good evening, City Council members and Madam Mayor, Dr. Ali. My name is Darcy Katie. Again, I apologize for my penmanship.
Sorry.
That's all right. So the red folders before you are from Peoria for Palestine, and tonight I've returned to resume my previous personal account of the longstanding impact that Agent Orange exposure has had on my family. Now it is how it directly correlates to the future impact that white phosphorus exposure will have on the population of Palestine that I began at the last City Council meeting. Before proceeding, I would like to thank the council for giving me so much grace, both at the last meeting and hopefully at tonight's as well, because the truth that I'm telling is not easy for me to express. However, please do not think that I am so naive as to believe that a sob story from days gone by will affect this council and pull on your heartstrings enough to inspire action, because I do not. If that were the case, action would have been taken immediately once the IOF began its most recent wave of genocidal extermination of the Palestinian people thanks to the United States weapons sponsored by the American working class. Instead, what I know to be fact is that the halls of history and the hearts of humanity will hold those who did nothing directly responsible for the atrocities being committed in Palestine today, because inaction is ultimately an action, and to do nothing is not neutrality, but a choice that favors the oppressors without whispering a word of ownership of ever having done so. It is cowardly and dishonorable to do by any governing body. What I am delivering tonight to this council is a voice from the future echoing into the past, should history unfortunately repeat itself. And I advise that each of you please listen. There are millions more individuals just like me being created in Palestine every time the IOF drop white phosphorus bombs on innocent civilians paid for by our local tax dollars. Not only has at least 5% of the Palestinian population either been killed or injured as of April 2024, according to the United Nations Development Program report on the Gaza Strip, but any Palestinians who manage to survive the horrors of this genocide will also be forced to face generations of suffering due to their exposure to white phosphorus. According to the World Health Organization, quote, white phosphorus is a chemical, waxy, solid substance that ignites instantly upon contact with oxygen. It is often used by militaries to illuminate battlefields, generate a smoke screen, as well as an incendiary. Once ignited, white phosphorus is very difficult to extinguish and sticks to surfaces like skin and clothing. While white phosphorus is harmful to humans by all routes of exposure, the smoke from burning phosphorus is also harmful to the eyes and respiratory tract. White phosphorus can cause deep and severe burns, penetrating even through bone. After exposure, the priority is to stop the burning process. Caution must be exercised to avoid secondary exposure via medical personnel. White phosphorus can reignite during or after initial treatment due to contact with oxygen. Medical staff must use clean water / medically prepared saline throughout the treatment process, end quote. The truth is that innocent Palestinian civilians forced to set up floppy plastic tents on sand if they're lucky enough to have shelter are getting vaporized by white phosphorus bombs. If they do live, they are left with excruciatingly painful burns that are slow to heal and known to spontaneously reignite and smoke. It is utterly preposterous, to imply that the innocent Palestinians could ever remotely receive proper care for such severe attacks, given the entire medical infrastructure of Palestine being systematically dismantled and intentionally destroyed by the Israeli occupation forces. To date, 30 out of 36 hospitals and medical facilities in Gaza have been bombed repeatedly with medical staff, patients, and civilians, killing and injuring thousands. 24 of the 36 hospitals bombed by the IOF are out of service due to damage they have sustained. 14 hospitals have been directly hit by bombs dropped by the IOF, with only 4 as of May this year not sustaining damage by munitions. I would like to ask the council to please take the ceasefire resolution to a vote upon the next meeting. Thank you.
And a car.
I'm sorry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, honorable council members. Here we are again, and we appreciate your time. The genocide rages on. Our president keeps stating his ironclad support of Israel, and our U.S. weapons keep flowing to Israel, giving an endless supply of horrific killing power to an unrestrained, above every law state, the state of Israel. And this is against our own U.S. laws, because they are abusing these weapons and they are using it against civilians. That is a violation of our laws. I would rather die traumatized Palestinian children in Gaza told U.S. humanitarian aid workers. They wish they were dead. These children who should be playing and should be in school, they wish they were dead because of the conditions they are in. The United Nations today, July 9, had a statement that about the death of the Palestinian children from 6 months old to 13 years old due to malnutrition and starvation. Quote, this is from the United Nations. We declare that Israel's intentional and targeted starvation campaign against the Palestinian people is a form of genocidal violence and has resulted in famine across all of Gaza. End quote, just that I have here. NPR ran a story about this today. And, I listened to it incessantly, so I certainly heard it. They also, this United Nations group, also called for an end of the siege and establishment of a ceasefire We gave you also some information in the packets and the red folders to give you just a background that this is not something that just happened today. This is the crescendo now, after years and years of abuse that we turned a blind eye on. A ceasefire is unanimous statement and sentiment of millions across this country and across the world. Our officials seem to turn a blind eye to the humanity of the victims, either due to ignorance, to malice, or to pressures. They're succumbing to pressures of various forms, including political and financial. We want you here. We implore you here. You are our officials, to be our voice, the voice of humanity, the conscience of every person in our community who wants to see equal rights for all, freedom, and just the basic human rights, dignity, right to live in peace. A ceasefire just to allow those who have seen unspeakable horrors and sadistic brutality to look for their families, to dig them up, to bury them, to work, and for all sides to work on a political resolution. A support of a ceasefire is such a minimal statement, but it's a great start. And we really hope you support us in that. Thank you.
Welcome. Next, we have Estrella Diaz.
Hello, hi. All right, give me 1 second. I didn't think that I was up next. But I just want to say, I know you guys are tired of us coming back and persisting, but I mean, imagine how tired we are of having to constantly see, the atrocities that are happening overseas. And I know I've said this many times, like you may say that it's like you don't deal with international issues and whatnot, but did you know it's not really an international because it also deals with us, not only from our tax dollars, but on June 6th, there was a mission that the Israeli occupation army did where they were disguising as humanitarian aid, and they injured over 200 people. But not only was it them, but it was also American soldiers on the ground too. So we are complicit. We are involved as well in this. So it does involve us. It's not, yes, it is international, but it's not just international because we're overseas and we're committing the same acts as well over there. So, I mean, and not only that, but how can you guys sit back? I understand that you may not, and I don't mean to come off aggressive, it's just, it's disheartening to see that you guys are in a position of power, but you don't feel like you're able to do anything. And I'm not saying you guys got to stop this at a international level, but you have this power for a reason. You're in these positions for a reason. You are here to do stuff for community, for people, and say if we were over there, I would want you to at least yell and scream and, try to say something, at least. I mean, I don't know if you know the story of him, Rajab, who was only 6 years old, who was trying to flee from a refugee camp, and the Israeli occupation forces shot at the car. She was left in the car for 12 days alone with 6 of her dead family members. And the Israeli occupation forces, they had tanks, and they shot like 15 to 25 meters away, and they shot 355 times. So it's like, it may not affect you, it may not hit you on a personal level, you may not have family, you may not deal with international issues, but how can you sit back and not even say a thing because you want to be neutral, because it doesn't have anything to do with you? This is something that is happening every day, and to just sit back and not say anything, I think it's just, no offense, I think it's a complete waste of power. You have that position, and I'm sorry if it is coming off disrespectful, but the death toll is up to 46,000. it may be even more because they don't have the full list. But I hope that you can, when all of this is over and you had a chance to say something, I hope you're happy with the decisions that you made, because not saying that you could have prevented this, but at the time you had the courage to say something. So yeah, and I also wanted to mention highly flavored. This is off topic. I had different views the last time where I was like, alcohol, it can be dangerous. It just depends on the actions that you take. But I mean, here they are. They're persisting. They want to get this done, and like they're very adamant about getting it done. And maybe I had the wrong view of it because, again, alcohol, there's too many bars. But I mean, you said there was only 3 calls that were that were done because of highly flavored. I mean, there was more, but like that escalated. So I just feel like if they're here, if they're willing to be here and keep fighting to have that restaurant, just let them. It's not, and I mean, they said they own the fry spot. I used to go there, then it was good. But I feel like if they are wanting to do something and they have great contribution to like the community and stuff, then why not? But that's all I got.
Next, we have Adam Katoon.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. As we keep fighting for this ceasefire, I just want to tell you all that other cities in Illinois that have also passed the ceasefire. Obviously, we all know Chicago. We have Bolingbrook, Villa Park, Urbana, Bridgeview, Burridge, Batavia, and that's all. But there's a lot of other cities that are working on it. Peoria, Champaign, Bloomington, St. Louis on the one that's for Illinois, the part of Illinois that's in St. Louis, or part of St. Louis that's in Illinois. It's just, we're going to keep pushing and we're going to keep trying. And, instead of having us every single city council meeting coming up here telling you guys a depressing story that most of you already know, let's just get it over with. And I mean, we, as the Peoria for Palestine, we believe we're a humanitarian rights activist group that is based off of the Palestinian issue. We have just joined a group that is a civil rights advocate group for the south side of Peoria, because we believe what's going on the south side is wrong as well. We're speaking out about all these other things as well. We believe that, we want to join in on the garbage pickup day. We want to help out in Peoria. We're based off of the Palestinian issue, but we want to help out in Peoria. We're Peoria for Palestine. We're based off of Palestine, but we're here to help Peoria in any way we can. And whether we get that ceasefire or not, we're still here to help Peoria, and we're still here to push for the ceasefire. So I just wanted all of you to know that while we are still pushing for this ceasefire, we are still here trying to help out in any way we can. And if you guys have any suggestions for us to help out with Peoria, please let us know. Thank you.
Rachel Parker.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm just here on behalf of the Peoria Women's Club. I serve as their recording secretary and just want to thank you all for that $150,000. The club has been working very, very hard over the last couple of years trying to restore that building, and it is absolutely beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to come in, we welcome you to come to any of the events. Gentlemen, your wives, you encourage them to join the club. There's lots of activities there, and I'm sure they would like it. But again, I just wanted to thank you. Kim Mitchell, our president, could not come tonight, so I came to at least listen in and then hope that it would pass, and was just really glad. I sent a text as soon as you guys passed it, and all of them started replying. So we really appreciate it, and I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk? Uh-oh. There we go.
I believe we do not have an executive session, so then we would be at adjournment.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Please cast your ballots. Thank you for your service. Councilmember Jackson, cast your vote. We're adjourned. Thank you.